you go to South College where I'm adjunct. It's a 2-year program, but it is like other programs are full time, but this is full commitment. Like you can't hold another job. Like if you're an undergrad in GC and then come more traditional programs, you can get 3.5 years, but you can kind of have a part-time job here and there. But there's a hybrid program. And then you're in the workforce a year early.
She wants to go to UTC.
UTC is a great college. I teach them a couple lectures, but well, that would make sense. But she can live in Chattanooga.
Oh, yeah.
And go to South Carolina.
Taking my boyfriend to college, it's like taking sand to the beach.
True.
Okay.
Yeah, we're having talks. It's in Knoxville, but they do on-site labs every quarter. Otherwise, you're out. I don't know.
Is there any thing about having to work for somebody for X number of years or anything like that? You have to apprentice under somebody.
There's a clinical rotation that's included in all that.
Okay.
And
While
that
you're
portion-
going to school.
Yes. I like doing that too. It's so easy. Don't eat breakfast. It's the easiest.
Well, I don't usually.
I changed
that.
Casual Friday.
Casual.
Here.
Oh,
I don't worry about breakfast.
we had to run our house. Yeah, we have a contract. We're just waiting on them to sell their house. So I got still waiting. I got to close. You mean you're done? I'm done.
And then there's.
You don't own that house anymore.
I don't. I'm very proud to say.
I played tennis for the CS.
Going,
Haven't seen
is
it
it
like
the
69.
6.8?
You know, that's what I said.
Yeah.
That's a different center focus. San Francisco, California.
Should have used my.
Hey,
Sam.
They took it to the store. Walk away.
Yeah.
I played.
Yeah, wow.
Shirley.
Shirley.
The city keeper after they.
That's right.
That's your start.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I would say team effort. Certainly not me. We got a great team.
Yeah, you really did.
It's 1 minute after 12, so let's go ahead and start the Finance Committee and review, first of all, the review of the departmental budgets. And then we'll follow up with capital budgets and the review of the nonprofits. Couple of things before we start this is that I'd like to, in the packets that you've gotten here, explain a couple of things. Our projected ending balance was supposed to be $3.7 million that we projected last year would be our ending balance. It looks like it's going to be more around 4.1 million. And it could be a little higher than that, but I certainly wouldn't project that at this point in time since we don't have another month and a half to go. Also, it looks like that our ending balance for next year is going to be around ending balance this year will be 4.1 plus the 2 million from the ARP money. So it's going to be around 6.1 million that we're going to have. And the difference between the 3.7 and the 4.1 is that, well, let me get that information. The departments are returning about 4 to 5% of unspent money. And we did have increased tax revenues almost across the board, from sales tax to any kind of tax that you would name, plus the ARP money. So the first part of that, the increased taxes, everything brought it up from 3.7 to 4.1. And then the 6.1 is because of the $2 million that we got on ARP money. The capital projects are not in the department budgets, but they are showing up in the general fund at the 1.1 so many $1 million bracket as it was proposed, which we can review today and either up, down, or go sideways on them. One of the things that we need to do when we review the budgets is to look at the fuel cost. We think we've probably underestimated, considering the fact that fuel has gone up precipitously in the last week, 2 weeks, month. So we need to look at that and possibly raise the amounts up for that. It's not going to affect the bottom line that much. The big ones, of course, are in fire and public works, but still it won't affect the bottom line significantly. Also the rates do include, the department budgets do include the upgrading of salaries to the medians that were done by the study. And also they reflect a 10% increase in our medical. Okay. Oh, and also, yes, you're right. The 3% step is also in here. So that is already included in the departmental budgets and in the general fund. If we do get lowered on that, we won't know what that rate's going to be, I think, for another month or two. Is that correct? Or
They'll let us know around August. what our
Okay.
rate for January will be, but
okay. And it doesn't affect us until January of next year. But if they go from 10% down to 5%, we would actually save another $100,000. So that would certainly offset any fuel thing that we've put in. And but we don't know that yet. We cannot predict it, other than we know that we've got a pretty clean record when it comes to medical claims. Okay. I don't know if there's anything else anybody wants to highlight out of the departmental budgets other than fuel. If you do, we can do that as we go down through the departmental budgets. Anybody got any questions so far?
Are the numbers on the nonprofits based on what was?
The
what was
numbers put
asked,
in
right?
here is the ask. That's correct. And we'll review that. I've got some information that I did reviewing what the ask was, some notes that Zach said he would like to see. And I've got some things that I've put in that I think would be appropriate too. So I'm going to weigh in on that. I'll hand these out when we get down to that. But yes, it does include the 500 and I think it's 7,000 or something like that money. And that amount also includes the $70,000 going to the TDB, which is strictly a pass through. So you can take $70,000 off that number as to it coming out of the general fund. So keep that in mind also.
I know I'm not on the committee, but I do have a question.
Sure.
You said the fire department budget for fuel would be pretty large or go up?
It not as much as the police department
Yeah,
or
okay.
the public works. Those are the two that use most fuel, but they're the third lead candidate and will probably need to adjust their rate upwards too. Now depending on the department, we'll go through this when we go through department budgets. Some of them have used already more fuel than we budgeted last year, and some of them have used a lot less. So, you know, of course, if we figure gas is going to end up being in the $6 or $7 range, which we don't know about, but I think we projected, what was it, gas was 450 something, and diesel was around 6 something. That's the numbers that are in here right now. Is that right?
It was $4.50 for regular unleaded, $5.18 for premium. There are very few things, premium gas that we do have across the city, and then $5.70 for diesel. We're already seeing diesel above $5.99 at the moment, so we may need to go back and discuss those budgets and I say $5.99, that was Murfreesboro price, but I think we've seen a significant increase just over the past week.
Also, one other thing that I wanted to mention is our long-term debt. The $192,000 for some paving 10 years ago. This is the last year of payment on that. It's $192,000. After this year, it will be gone. We have $47,000 for renovations to the swimming pool and the tearing down of the blue building back gymnasium. That will go off after 2 years, next year and the following year. And it's 47,000. So the only debt after 2 years will be $130,000 for the Park Theater and $645,000 for the Miller Center. So I think it goes another, is it 10 years? Something like that. We did it.
It was a 20-year.
It was 20 years, but I think how long has it been done? Since 14 or 15? So, you know, you're talking another 10, 11 or 12 years probably. And of course, we're talking 19 years on the Miller Center.
Park Theater comes off 2034.
Okay, that's what I thought it was. It's 12 years.
In regards to, you mentioned at the beginning, cash balance with the 6.1 at the beginning of this year and the projected 5.5 million at the end of the next financial year, that would keep us in a good range with about 4 months of operating costs, even with no income.
I'd like to start every year with $3.5 to $4 million, and this certainly does that. And you know, the ARP money obviously made a big difference in here. We'd still been okay, but the ARP money gives us some range about doing paving and the sidewalks and the things that we want to do. So, but like I said, capital budgets are not in the department budgets yet, but they are in here as they were proposed in the general fund as they're proposed. Anything that we go up or down on capital budgets or up or down on nonprofits will be reflected in this when we do that. So we're still a long ways from a budget, but we'd like to do, you know, have maybe first reading the middle of June or something like that when we have our first meeting in June. But we're going to shoot for doing not next week, the week after next, doing the final approvals of all the public budgets. Okay, I guess we can start with the departments then. Go down the line with administrative, the gas amounts in there are pretty minimal. We got $500 in there. They only used 184 so far this year. Now, if we want to raise that, we can, even though it's a small amount. Even if we double it, it's not going to affect the bottom line that much. What do you think, Steve? Should we add some more to it?
I mean, I guess you can.
It's not going to.
It's insignificant, but I mean, if you want to.
Yeah, I think we ought to add something to it because to Samantha, it's just a matter of keystroking one thing to get it changed, so we're gonna give her changes.
We can go to what we were budgeted last year,
Last year was,
3,000.
no, this line item 331. They budgeted 500.
Yeah.
General administration.
Okay, I was looking at,
You're looking at the gas up on
oh,
the,
that's utilities.
gas.
I don't know. I mean, you could add 50% to it.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Maybe make it 750 or something like that. Is that okay with you? Okay. Is there anything else anybody's got on the administrative budget that they want? Other than donations, we'll go after that later. Did we include in here? We didn't, I don't think, anything coming back from the state on the Page Setters building. We did not address that, right? Okay. Because we supposedly owe them more money. But as Samantha said, the last meeting we had, one side of the building is not talking to the other side of the building, and they think we still owe them money for the right of way, which we donated by buying the Page Setters building. So it was a 3-year thing. We had to pay a third, and a third. And they haven't, the other people say, no, you still owe the $77,000. And we're saying, we bought the building and gave it to you. So we're hoping to get the money back that we paid the first third of that and not pay the second or third. I think we paid 2 payments, didn't we? So we paid, $140 some odd thousand. And so that's not included in here either. There's nothing else on that. We can go to the police department budget. And we certainly need to address the fuel here because they budgeted for 70,000 last year. They've already used, with a month and a half left to go, almost $79,000 worth. And we only budgeted 110. So we need to up that.
Based on their actual 10-month usage, I'm thinking at least $160,000 for the year. If the prices are 450, 518, and 570, so it may even need to be higher than that. But I pulled the previous 10 months and projected that out to 12, and I get $160,000 for the police department.
Based upon the numbers you had for gas and diesel.
Yeah.
Now, the problem is that we're concerned that it's gonna go up in price from here.
Even more than the $4.
Yeah, even more than the 450 a gallon. We're getting close to there already. So,
I don't think $200,000 would be completely out of the question if prices continue on the trend, but I think at least 160 would be the base over the 110 that they have budgeted now.
what do you think, Steve?
That's fine.
For 200 or 160?
I'd say 160, or unless you want to split the difference and go 180.
No, that's fine. If we see we're gonna carry over, we'll find out if they've got the money in the budget or amend the budget, but what do you think? Zach? Is that okay?
160.
160, okay. Anything else about the police department? And remember, there's a bunch of stuff in the capital budget for police department that's not here yet. Fire department. Again, we can go down and look at the gas. Now, they don't use as much gas. They actually were budgeted for 12,000 last year. They've used around a little over $10,000 worth. And we've only got 15 in there. So should we run that up to about 20 or so?
My calculation is 23,371.
23.
71.
No, just 23 or 24. Let's make it 24.
24,000.
Yeah. Anything else we have for fire? Community development. Got just $2,000 in there. Make it 3 and still be pretty safe, I think. Public Works, here's another biggie. Now they were budgeted 38 last year. We put in 75 and they've only used, or I'm sorry, they're budgeted for 40. They've already used 38. But we budgeted 75. I don't know what the difference, why that much more. It's almost double.
For the increase in the field.
What-
It's already,
We
Well-
discussed that during their committee workshop. So
Yeah.
we had went ahead and upped it at one point just a couple weeks ago.
Okay,
But I think we need to analyze that again. We did find out today street aid is coming out of Public Works. So we're gonna get a different key card for them. Street aid isn't paying anything out of gas and oil. It's a wrong key or something. someone keeping. So a portion of that.
will
usage
come out of
will go
street aid.
down, But I've got 89,424 for them for Public Works / street aid. Most of that is Public Works. Street aid uses it's one individual and one vehicle.
you know, it's.
Okay. Do you think we ought to write it up to 90,000 then you said?
That would be for both. How much? are you thinking that? So like this, we've got 2,000 budgeted in street aid.
Yeah. Yeah, that probably is.
Okay,
We've got 2,000 in street aid, so actually I would say 88,000. That would get us to
Okay.
90 total.
we can put 90 in here then,
Okay.
and then we can adjust the street aid if we need to. We can go through it.
She's counting 90 for both.
Oh, you got 90 for both?
If we put 88 here.
Oh,
and then
okay.
The 2,000 over in street aid, that would be 90.
Okay, all right. Parks and Rec doesn't use a whole lot, but what do you recommend there? Sue?
Budgeted 12, I'm projecting 10,800, so the 12 should be sufficient. I think that was one we also increased during the committee workshop already.
Sorry, you increased it to what?
We had already increased it to 12 during the committee workshop,
Mhm,
and I'm projecting almost 11,000, so the 12 should be sufficient.
okay,
Unless we see a astronomical increase, but that would be for everyone.
yeah, they only use 77,000 year to date, and of course, that's the lower prices. 12,000 is okay. Park Theater, there's a couple $100 in there. We might as well just leave that one, I think. I don't know that they even use that. Doesn't look like they used anything. Vehicle maintenance, we got 2,500 in the budget. And yeah, 22 last year, it looks like, or 2.2. And we've used about 1,800, so that's gonna come in about what the budgeted thing. It sounds like we under the 2,500 is not enough.
I would recommend at least 3,600.
Okay, I'm sorry.
3,750 or 3,600. My
But-
calculation is $3,631.
Okay, just make it 36.
36, okay.
Animal control. he's only used about half of his budget this year, and we've run it up from 1,100 to 1,750. Does that one look okay?
Yes, that one looks fine. I'm projecting 1,200, so.
Okay. Urban forestry. They're gonna be about on budget. Went up about 30%. Does that need to go up a little bit more?
We should be fine there.
Okay,
Our budget are projecting 7,700, but 10 should be sufficient.
okay. And over drug fund doesn't have any. Free day does. That's the 2,000 that, okay, that 2,000 is already in there. Okay. Is there any other solid waste? Yeah, there's some in solid waste.
We definitely need to take a look at sanitation.
Yeah, that's a biggie.
My projection is 123, almost 124,000. We budgeted 75.
124,000. Water department. We got 20,000 in there. They've already blown their budget from last year. They've spent 22 and they only budgeted 15, so it's 20. 20 is not going to be enough.
Projecting 55,000 between water and wastewater. Half of one and half of the other.
You've got 14 in wastewater and you've got 20. So how do you want to split that, the 55? Per department?
As the bills come in, we'll just split it in line. One thing we need to look at too on that is our chemical bids come in. For the upcoming year, and on some of them, we'll double the cost, so I really think probably in water.
What line item we talking about?
322. Probably in water, I'm just gonna say we need to change that from 95. Bleach actually double. Wastewater. Probably 125.
That's still under 322.
Yes, sir.
$125 to $140.
That's a long capital. Well, yeah.
You want to talk about it? We probably in the capital on the roof will be Probably looking at adding about. This is just an estimate of 60,000 for
What's this for?
that. The Bell Street roof, the roof on the warehouse. We had 175 in the capital on each one for wastewater and wastewater, which was 350.
Okay, that should go into capital.
It's capital.
Okay, we'll talk about that next. Yeah. Just speak up when we get into that. Anybody got any other questions about department budgets? Okay, if not, we'll go into the capital expenditures.
I've got one.
Yeah,
On the solid waste funds, I might need to raise the, I know we've not spent much of it this year on the repair and maintenance of remote machinery and equipment or vehicles. I've got a front loader garbage truck, commercial, our extra truck. It's needing a new engine probably.
and that's under 332. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Oh, repair, yeah,
261.
okay.
261.
Okay, she's got it in.
I've got it down on their transportation equipment under capital outlay.
Oh, on the-
Over 40,000.
Okay.
It is in there.
Okay. Well, that's fine. I mean, that's fine. As long as no,
Going, anybody else got anything on the departmental budgets? Okay, going into the capital budgets, under administration, transportation, this is your Lombardini. Nolan?
That's right. Yep.
The 24,000 is a heck of a deal, I guess.
That's right.
Knocked off a couple of zeros there. Okay. Computer equipment, the 7,500. That's for the new server, right?
Yes.
Okay. And you're having major problems with the server.
We've lived it along for a few years now. It's time to finally
Scotty's put his magic to it and still,
pass.
okay. All right, and phase 3 downtown revitalization. City Hall window upgrade. We've only got 5,000 in there.
So I knocked that down knowing that we just need to replace the third floor window. That's priority number one.
Okay, is that
And I
only gonna be $5,000?
I have honestly no idea. I think it's just one pane of glass. That's, yeah. So the rest of it we're kicking out till, I don't have any pricing on any of it at this point. I have requested it, but haven't received anything.
And
So,
is there only one window that you got to replace?
yes, immediately, yeah. Mhm.
Okay. Your office?
No, the one that's broken or that's having issues on the third floor.
Oh, okay.
By the elevator.
I didn't know we had one that's
Yeah.
actually broken. Okay.
Yeah, so that's just fixing the one that has issues currently with leaking. It may be able to be repaired.
Put a new pane of glass.
Yeah, we're not sure. So,
The last one we had to do when the glass was broken, one window was 5,000.
oh,
Good guess.
How long ago was that?
It's been several years ago, it's before we moved to Bell Street and back.
Okay.
On the better.
Should we increase that to 7,500?
It might not be a bad idea considering,
Surely saying that it was 5 a couple of years ago.
yeah. Okay. And you still want to look at replacing everything at some point in time, right?
Yeah, I think it's more realistic to kick it out at least a year after getting pricing and seeing what it looks like.
Okay.
Not an immediate concern.
Okay. All right. The downtown revitalization, we're talking about kicking that out. Are we going to get into a situation here with the state on this paving? I'm concerned that we need to do Mulford Street as much as we can, whether we actually do the rest of it. We need to do the other underground stuff even more than we need the sidewalks and that kind of stuff, because I'd sure hate to tear up brand new pavement, you know,
Well,
and it'd be 6 months down the line.
the whole section is TDOT right away. So Main Street and Morford.
Yeah.
So
Main Street's, I think, is in pretty good shape, isn't it? Is it, Ricky?
Yes, all.
as far as what?
Underground stuff.
Yeah. As far as the infrastructure, that was all done on Main Street. That was done from the church down, all the way down and back down, Morford to, I think, maybe has funeral home. But the section we just looked at.
We're
What he's
talking about,
is from like Frank Farrah's office down to the Chancery.
Down
That's not,
to, yeah. to
if
where-
you're talking about the status or condition of the water infrastructure,
And the sewer, yes.
it's all 79 or 51 or 22. So it's pretty old.
A lot of water, especially in front of Hardee's and in front of Hardee's on the water and sewer's like 1922. From your corner back and back up from Frank Farrah's,
Yeah,
that's like in the 40s. Everything from on Morford, some of the water's 70s, some of it's 51. A lot of the sewer's 51. So. we
from,
did-
you
we
mean
did-
from the square up Mulford Street or
Yeah.
the whole thing?
From the square of Mofford Street there,
Okay.
at the very end to down to Lynn Street.
Okay,
So,
but from the square to where it connects to Sparta Street, that's okay?
that's okay, yes. As far as we met with Nathaniel Green this week, and we asked about changing some of that over from 10 to 12 inch, because there's a 10 inch, a 12 inch, a 16 of basically redoing all of that, where we got one size and doing away, abandoned some of the water line there. And the question is, can we redo the sewer line in-house ourselves? That's what we're looking at, and put an 8 inch in there. If it's not a safety concern, as far as the sewer, I think. we should. As far as the water, when you come into that 12 inch stuff, that would have to be contracted.
Well, I'm just concerned that with the state going to pave either next year or the year following, that we need to do something now about the underground stuff, regardless of whether we put light poles down Mulford Street or new sidewalks. I mean, we can do that not as a one plan, but maybe in stages or something. But the underground part, I would hate to have to dig, you know, let the state in a year or so pave everything and then we have to dig it back up. Especially if that stuff is that old. I mean, you're talking 80-year-old, 100-year-old stuff.
I'm confident based on our last meeting that we had with TDOT that they are willing to work with us
On
on
the way.
rescheduling their paving if we all feel like that's what the best thing to do would be.
But if they do it, if they push it out to 24, we still gonna have to do it by next year. You know, because we're talking.
All I know is we are coordinating with CT Consultants and James C. Haley and TDOT currently. So
Yep, they are gonna tell us what we need to do then.
that's right. And
At least till next year.
my thinking was just, I don't think we would really incur any costs in the upcoming budget year as we formulate what you all want to do, how much it might cost, and get closer to what you want to do. And then you can come up with the time frame and work with TDOT on that.
Well, this particular part would come out of that 2 million that we got in the water and sewer, I mean, that we got from the ARP funds.
Possibly,
But yeah, I mean,
but
depending
they've
on,
got that earmarked for the water plant upgrade,
okay. But
which is 5.7, and they only get 2.6.
is there any other grants on that that we get from the state?
On both projects, there will be. So both on the water plant
And on the
and the
streets?
streets, we are looking to supplement whatever money we put towards it with grants. So
Okay. All right, as
Um,
long as we continue to do that so that we can decide at some point in time that we want to replace that stuff before they pave.
yes,
I just have a horrors that we, we paved it, 6 months later, water mains start blowing up everywhere or something.
no, we won't let that happen.
Okay.
We've had very little issues, especially in that Morford area. We've had some issues in front of Hardee's, but some of that being grease issues, but that is age infrastructure there.
Okay. All right, I guess that explains that. Okay, we've got the animal control truck. That was not bought last year and it's getting shoved over this year. And that is on its way supposedly, or,
It's older,
okay,
so. When, but it has been older.
okay. Okay, getting into the fire department. We've got turnout gear at 57. And
I think it's every firefighter that already doesn't have their second set of turnout gear to meet the very Brady Act requirement. Their second set, the original proposal was to buy one shift per year. So we spent 34,000 this year, plan to spend 34 the upcoming budget, and then another 34 the next. We are seeing prices increase on that equipment. So they went ahead and rolled all of that into this budget to kind of mitigate what we foresee the future cost of those to be. So this 57,000 would get every firefighter 2 sets of turnout gear to meet that requirement set by the Brady Act.
okay,
And that's gonna be something we're gonna try every year to buy a couple, correct?
Correct.
Just
after
to-
we get them all up to
After we get them all,
speed.
so we can not have big long hits.
It would fall out of this capital project list or budget and go over into your operating, similar to what we discussed with tasers, vests, that there would be a reoccurring cost every year as the operating expense. But we shouldn't see it again in capital
Okay,
if we can get them all caught up now.
okay. Same way with the police cars that we were talking about the other day too. All right, forcible entry. $8,600. I assume this is something that eats down doors or whatever.
Yes, it's a prop, and it can also be shared with the police department. It has to do with their training requirements, things like that. I would have to reach out to Marjorie Kendall for some more direct information, or we can discuss it in their committee, but I don't have more information other than that.
Mike, you're not gonna kick down any more doors?
I'm not really exactly sure what.
Okay. I'm just wondering how much of a need there is for it. Do you know anything about it?
Bring that back in committee.
Okay.
Discuss.
We can, well, let's leave it in right now and we can find out. I just don't know what they're talking about. I haven't heard about it in committee either. FEMA. Next one's 9,500. It's a FEMA a grant match. Oh, this is for the whitewater stuff.
And there's also the training aspect in there too.
Okay. And the FEMA grant is 4,500,
That's our match.
and then we have 4,500 plus in training.
It's 5%. And should be
think it's about 200 and change
Mhm.
$1,000 was the request.
Oh, okay. Okay, going down to the Park Theater.
Can we
I'm
take one
sorry.
step back to the
Sure.
fire truck? I know it's not in the capital for this year.
Mhm.
But how does the finance committee feel about looking at, because it's 2 years to build now, the timeline? It doesn't impact this budget, but it does. Or the ordering time does. Impact. Is that something that we can discuss in terms of?
Yeah, I'm not sure how we do this because if you order it now, you gotta have money appropriated for it, even if we're not gonna, pay for it.
What are you talking about?
Fire truck. Oh,
Because right now, the time to build and receive is about 2 years, 18 months to 2 years. So I think a little bit of forethought on that. Probably appropriate for us, and we're saying we have to have it appropriate. How do we appropriate for something that's not gonna be in this budget? I know it's not gonna be in this budget.
How does it normally work in a large piece of equipment like that? Do you pay for part of it up front or
We were
No,
told you
until you
pay
get it.
upon receipt.
the full amount?
That's what we were told, yes.
Well, then
I mean, we could
then
put
why
it,
would we, I'm not sure what if that's the case.
And that's part of having this capital budget, so we can see we've got 850 scheduled for 24, 25.
well, it's not a budget item for this thing, even though we might decide to do it.
Right.
Because, and you're talking 24, 25 to pay for it. But I think there's some questions to be answered. Like I said, that I talked about before, I want to know what the ISO effect would be. And
I
what
have an
the,
answer on that.
oh, you do?
You can keep going. I'll pull up the response.
Okay. But anyway, what ISO costs, what it would cost to the average homeowner, I guess, if the ISO rating changes. And then what we'd be looking for in the way of grants. Because you said there's some.
Yeah, there's
grants out there.
two grants. One is the Upper Cumberland District Grant, and Waters currently has it. We can only have one grant with them at a time. The opportunity with that grant coming this fall would be upwards of $400,000. FEMA has a section that can go towards a truck as well that we could apply for next January. So that would, it would give us about 18 months to 2 years window to spend that money. And so that would be kind of good timing if we're ordering it, filing for that first grant in February, filing for the second grant in January, knowing by next summer, and then receiving it that second year. And that would cover, if we got both grants, a considerable amount. One of the things about this, which is interesting, is, Chief has talked about changing a little bit of the mentality of the fire department, because a lot of what they do is extrication and accidents. And so his plan is to replace one of the big water trucks that has 750, 800 gallon tanks with cement as a smaller tank, but they can put a ton more gear on. So it's a rescue truck. Right now, they have to have 2 of their trucks show up for extrication.
Because there's something in one, something in the other.
And he has this outfitted, so they would still have those 2 trucks outfitted. This would replace one of the ones that has already been off the ASO for a period of time. So the one that's going off would still be a regularly used. So we'd have 2 of those, and that's the ISO thing. But we had 4 accidents 2 Fridays ago in a matter of 2 hours out at the high school because we had that gentle rain, and then those accidents, 2 of them were extrication. So with that, they could have had both those extrications going on at the same time if need be, and certainly efficient use of rescue.
Well, we could, as a board, we could certainly by January, look at whether we're gonna, order it or even possibly by, what was this, UCHRA grant sometime.
Yeah, we'd be,
October, November.
we'd be eligible to start applying for it when the water department is concluded and wrapped up their process with it.
Okay. Well, there's no money for the next 2 years anyway, but we can start the process. Hopefully now, especially if we can find out if we can get a grant or two.
Yeah, I think one of the things that concerns me is that timeline. If we don't place an order in the near future, and then we get the grant in the fall and the grant next spring, our timeline starts. And if we don't take possession of it, we can't pay for it. So there is some timing here of when we order it. So I would keep that in mind.
You
If
had
we ordered it today, we're still not in this budget at all.
No, it's 2 years down the line.
So I can just read a response. This is from Stephen Cross, the fire management consultant at MTAS. It is hard to answer this question with a specific answer without a specific associated study. If the municipality is replacing an aging apparatus currently in service, then the purchase will most likely not result in an ISO improvement. If the municipality is in need of an additional apparatus to meet the basic fire flow requirements of the municipality, then this additional apparatus with associated personnel could have a positive impact on the community's ISO rating. Part 2, if the community was able to reduce its ISO classification by 1 point from a 3 to a 2, the property owners of 1 and 2 family dwellings could expect a savings of approximately 3 to 4% on their property insurance premium. According to the Comptroller's Office, McMinnville 1 and 2 family property values are estimated at $450 million. It is estimated that property owners pay approximately $1.6 million in insurance premiums annually. If these property owners realized a 3% savings, collectively, that would be a savings to the property owners of $47,000 annually, or $236,500 over 5 years. It's important to note McMinnville also has $306 million in property value in industrial and commercial properties. The majority of these properties are rated individually for insurance coverage. We can estimate that these property owners will save dollars. We just do not have a formula we're comfortable with to estimate those dollars. NFPA 1901 Appendix D recommends that fire apparatus be used for frontline service for up to 15 years as long as they're maintained, then up to 25 years in reserve service. After 25 years of service, the apparatus should be retired.
Yeah, but that's not the question we need to ask. The question is, we're not trying to go from a 3 to a 2. We just want to see what it takes to go from a 3 to a 4 if we don't buy a truck.
You mean a 3 to a 2?
No, a 3 to a 4.
Well, that's not what I took away from our last meeting,
No,
but
I don't, we're not trying to, like you said in the first part of that, if we're replacing a piece of equipment, it's not going to change the ISO rating.
that's right.
If we don't replace a piece of equipment, what does it cost us to go from a 3 to a 4?
That's worse, right?
Yeah, that's correct. That's really if we decided we're not going to buy a truck.
Is it gonna negatively impact us?
Yeah, and if so, how much? That's the question that
I
really.
guess I asked the wrong question.
I think there's one other aspect that came out of this that I think is interesting. I mean, we're focused on the ISO rating for this truck that is now coming up on 20 years old. The truck that we're actually replacing is a 30-year-old truck. What I just heard there is that we should be retiring trucks at 25 years. So if we want to keep our fire department up to snuff, let's take our focus off of that 20-year truck that's coming off the ISO that we're going to be using as a reserve truck. And let's talk about our focus on that 30-year-old truck that we should be planning on replacing right now. That's 5 years over the recommended age.
I'd still like to know what what their answer is from going from a 3 to a 4. I understand.
I'll
what you're
find out.
But what I don't want to spend money out of the general fund if it doesn't affect anything. I agree with you that their recommendation is at 25 years. But that doesn't mean that piece of equipment ceases to being useful. It just means that they recommend that.
I agree with that to some extent. My problem is
not part of it.
this is, no, this is relative to having a piece of equipment that's an emergency piece of equipment. No offense to, our contractors and, those that are doing, some other services. We got a backhoe that breaks. It's not an emergency. There are other backhoes and things like that. So I'll bring this around through committee.
Okay. All right.
Communication equipment.
Yeah, for Park Theater. $1,000 for that. I guess that's okay. Do you know anything about that, Samantha, or any of these?
It's a piece of equipment, both of those together. One's an earpiece, so they can communicate from the sound booth that's in front of the mezzanine area to behind the scenes, behind the stage. And then the $3,000 is, I think, also tied into that, just an upgrade to their sound equipment there. They had it put in their capital outlay, and that's how it's ended up on this table. It would be new equipment
Okay.
for the Park Theater.
Dog park. Frank, can you finish it up with the $7,200?
The dog park,
Uh-huh.
I'm not really for sure what the,
I think this is the expansion.
That's for fencing.
that's for fencing, so I don't know. how
I thought
much-
we'd already put up.
He thinks that we can finish. The fencing cost ended up being more than he expected.
Mhm.
So he did some work this year, but he'll need this remainder or added cost to finish it. Most of the cost is for the fencing.
Okay. Plus you've got some other knickknacks you got to put in there too and everything.
Yeah.
Okay. Is this going to just expand the whole thing, or is there going to be separate stuff for different types of dogs in this new part? Or
I think this is the big dog area.
okay,
So,
so we're
but it's connected to the other. It's,
yeah, you can be open up
Right.
gates and everything. Okay. All right. Parks and Rec office furniture. Should we even have this in capital?
That's where it's
Ah.
historically lived. That's how it's ended up here.
This go under expenses of the department, I think.
we only threw it in because we were kind of throwing all the other capital things into this one to try to knock a whole bunch of them out.
I think
So-
the Park Theater stuff too should probably go under, the $4,000. I mean, we put it under capital, but we're not gonna amortize that.
The reason why I put it over there is because it includes a storage building and gym equipment. So since over one time, one thing purchases, I believe is how it ended up over on the capital table, but you're right, we could put it back in operating if we need to, just to.
Why don't you do that? Just increase the department budget. Okay. The water slide, that's 53,000. Right now, we don't have a water slide, is that right?
We have one, but the kitty slide was torn down.
That's what I mean, the big one's there, but not the small one.
Correct.
What's the timeline on that?
Like if we ordered it today, I don't know.
Probably not anytime soon.
Yeah, probably not. I would
Well,
guess.
it'd be less than a year, I would say, though, right?
Yeah. It would most likely be after the swimming season. Yeah. So now is a good time to order it, I would guess. Or sooner than later.
Yeah, if nothing else, we might order it for delivery before next year.
Yeah.
But, you know, still, you're gonna pay for it in this budget year, so. Might be worthwhile to find out what the timing is on that.
I'm gonna send a text to Justin and I can go back.
Okay. Okay, police. Vehicles, how many vehicles was this?
6.
6. And then the 27 under that is for outfitting them.
The 27 and the 95 together would be all communication, outfit of the petitions, in-car radio units. Radios have been ordered since February, expected to be here in June.
Well, radios over in January, should ship in August.
The radar, there was something,
Well, it's the complete outfit of the vehicle, it's working in February, and hopefully we might get them in June, they probably won't get it.
But the 95,000, what is, I know the 27 is communication, but what's in the 95?
it's the outfitting of the 6 patrol cars with the petitions, the radio units and whatnot. There's some THSO reimbursement items in there, my claim. Okay, and then there's a police bike, and then 22,000 of that 95 is a rollover from this year that we won't. They're not gonna be delivered in time and outfitted before June. They have to go to Knoxville.
And that's for cars you already have, I assume, right?
That's the ones it was approved in February for that purchase, but.
Okay. It's a chip shortage again. Okay.
And also, she said 11,400 radars, THSO versus this on that.
Okay.
And also under the vehicles there, we're applying for a USDA grant. It should be $50,000 at
Okay. That would reduce our
Yes.
commitment here then.
Yes, and our exposure 50,000.
Okay. The tasers, this one is for 20 of them. How many do we have now?
6.
6. So you're handing them off.
That way, everybody can have one, so they don't have to really have enough.
This is enough for all your road guys then?
Yes.
And ballistic vests, same way. Want to get on a rotation there too, right?
Yes, they expire. So like all of our SWAT vests are all expired. Now, we had road vests and some, their vests expired.
I'm curious about why they expire. It's not like it's canned peaches or something.
The NIJ that does the ratings for those, it's a safety thing, kind of like a car seat, like car seats aren't good indefinitely.
Yeah.
And so if we have one of those vests that's in date and an officer takes a round and it's penetrated, then there's insurance and things like that that are backed by the company. But if they're expired and an officer takes a round and it's penetrated, then it's on us.
That's right.
So basically, there's no warranty or backing by the company after that date, similar to a car seat or safety, other safety devices.
What do you do with the old vest? I mean, physically, what do you do with them?
We have to look over there's the dungeon, I guess. Well, religion.
Really can't give them another
Yeah.
law enforcement. Can I have one?
That's what we're all sitting here thinking. All of us.
Yeah, have you got one for all of us?
Always want.
Play with it, yeah.
Don't print that laser, it'll give people ideas. All right. I know we've already pushed out the police station preliminary work, but I'd like to throw something out here. Now, we've talked about everything in the world about putting in the police station, and I'll just throw my 2 cents worth in. We discussed pace setters. We've discussed staying here. We've discussed, building a new place. We've come up with every idea in the world. And again, this is just for what it's worth. I'll throw it out there. I'd like to take part of the Bell Street building and make it a police station by renovating that. And, I'd rather throw $1 million at it there, put a new facade on it, build offices on the inside. It's already got the walls up. And, divide it off from the water department. And I think we can do it a lot less than the 5 or 6 million for a brand new facility. But again, I'm just throwing it out there. We're not doing it right now. But we already own that property. We already own that building. That building is being underutilized by probably about 70%. So, I think we could make a nice, pretty facade front and inside for a lot less money than what we have. But yeah, I'll just throw that out there.
So if that was an option, when would that be executed?
We'd have to get somebody to look at, the architects to look at it and see what it's going to cost. But in doing that, we got to spend some money to do it. I don't know what that would cost. Nolan, could you find out what?
I've already asked Peter Metz for a cost for the new station in the same location on the property we already own.
Yeah.
But I can ask him for an estimate also on plans and design
Yeah.
for,
And there may be some limitations I don't see, that
right?
they need. I just don't know. But it seems like that, for $1 million or $1.5 million or, even 2 million, it'd still be better than spending 5 or 6 million on the regular police station. Now, I'm certainly not trying to throw the police department under the bus again. But we've got the property, we're putting a new roof on it. It's being way underutilized, but that's the reason we bought the thing, is so we can grow into it.
So specific, sorry.
To answer your question from before, the $100,000 was in there originally as a guesstimate on what it might cost to get plans for the new building. So I think 100,000 would be a little high for the build out of that, but
You mean to
You
do it
could-
at Bell
you could-
Street?
right,
Yeah.
you could back the 100 back into this upcoming budget if you want to get serious about plans.
I'd like to find out how much they think it's going to be.
I can probably find out before our next set of meetings.
I mean, if there's gonna be, again, to my point earlier, if the ball is gonna get rolling, and the finance committee feels like that alternative, let's say it's 50% of the cost of a new build out, it is a potential, and the department is agreeable to that change, then I would say, yes,
that money should go forward and be put in this year's budget. But if there's not we're not gonna spend 2.5 million or 5 million over the next 2 years, then that should be deferred for you.
I'd like to find out what it's gonna cost us. I really do.
I'll email Peter right now.
Yeah, I mean, it may be, I would think that doing something in an existing building would cost us less than 100,000. If the 100,000 was to do it as a standalone building. But again, I don't know.
So if, let's say it was less than 100,000, and of course it relies on and it was, are you thinking that the following year we would be putting capital money into doing the renovation?
If the price was right, I think, yeah, I would look at that. I mean, we've got money rolling off on our debt, and even if it costs 2 million and we decide to finance it, it would be a fairly low amount if we didn't have the general fund.
I know it's vague, we don't have the numbers, but I just, I want to make sure that we have some idea of vision, not necessarily commitment. Steve, how do you feel?
I'm okay with it. I think that could be a suitable location, as long as it's done correctly. It's not just,
Throw some paint on it.
yeah, we certainly can't go there. I mean, this needs to be a renovation similar to what the county did with William Bowles School, something in there. I mean, to me,
Yeah, I agree with you.
and that's a very nice facility now, it's an old school building. As far as when, I don't know. I mean, how much? I mean, I know it was only 400 something people, but how much weight do you put on the public survey that was done as to the priority of that expenditure? I mean, it wasn't a lot of people, but that gets brought up a lot. But I mean, personally, I think it's time. I mean, we're getting very near time, but
Well, it was down on the list, but it was,
it was on the list.
we haven't gotten down to the other big items on the list yet.
And-
But
We were leaving here, was it last Friday, and we had somebody trying to reach the police department. Of course, the building, they're trying to figure out how to get to the 3rd floor. So I do see and there are a few citizens that feel a need to have access and being able to get to the police.
And I'm not saying there's not, I'm just saying, and there may be more that do than don't, because the survey is not that many people. I mean, compared to citizens and voters, really. I mean, wasn't it like 400 and something?
Don't remember the numbers
Yeah,
exactly.
there's
I
not a
think it was
lot.
around 400 or so. And you don't know how many were actually voters too.
True.
But I think we owe them a place to be
Well,
together, and
I think so too.
whether the citizens,
I think that we do need a place where they're all together. I don't like this half of them here and half of them over there. I don't know about you guys, but I don't think it means it works for a good orderly.
It's hard to say what's going on, since we.
Right.
That communication being together.
It's a lot different picking up a phone than it is to walk right in the next office.
Yeah.
And with all due respect to the survey, I think we are trying our best to focus on paving sidewalks. And so if we're raising our emphasis on that while we're working on other departmental issues, then we're kind of taking the ones that they really are focused on and supporting other needs. So so the changing of that 100,000 from planned in 23, 24, will it be dependent on us getting more information from?
I'd like to put some money into it, put into that category now. We've got the money. We've got $6 million here to play with. And I'd like to put 50 or 75 in there now just to start the process. You know, it's still going to be a year or 2 years out before we're ready to go.
I just emailed Peter, so hopefully he'll get back to me
Okay.
later today or Monday, but I think you're safe throwing 75 in there.
And
That's what I was gonna say.
how do y'all feel about us shifting that money back in?
And it's good, you know, it's when you get down to, when they get an estimate of how much it will cost, it's kind of what we've been before. And then it doesn't happen, and then you get years down the road, and you have to get another one because the prices have changed.
I think, excuse me, because it is an existing facility, he could do something fairly quickly. I don't know. You need to talk to him, but we could throw 75 in here. And we don't use it so much, you know,
Yeah,
that's fine. But I think we can afford to throw it in here right now.
Is that okay with you,
Yes.
Steve?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right, here comes the big one, is sidewalks. Now, we've put $55,000 in the budget for last year. We have used $18,000 of that 55, and the year's almost over. I talked to Frank, and we've put $100,000 in for next year. I talked to Frank, and Frank says he would be lucky without a headcount change to do $50,000 worth a year. So everybody agrees we want a bunch of sidewalks, but unless we add headcount, 50,000 is probably going to do a year's worth. And right now, last year, we put an emphasis on doing West Main Street, and we've only gotten 18,000. Because if he's got a crew working on sidewalks and there's a water main break someplace, he's got to pull them off. Now, if we add headcount, then yeah, we could throw as much in there as we want. Maybe working, 200 days a year building sidewalks. But I think it's incumbent upon us to not throw so much money in there that Frank can't use it. And $10,000 or $100,000 is, I don't think is an alternative unless we want to include or make a headcount change.
I think you should consider a couple things. We were trying to spend the money from the grant that we had at Pepper Branch, so they were pouring concrete down there all the time. In the meantime, he was waiting to, and still is waiting to hear back from TDOT. So that's been a delay also. So if you were to take those two things out of the equation and tell Frank to take his 100,000 and go spend it on sidewalks without any TDOT limitations or other interferences other than daily operations, maybe he could spend the 100,000.
That's
I
not
guess-
that's not what he told me. He told me 50.
Well, I mean, it's like he said, if I didn't have nothing else, I could probably do it, maybe. But
Can we,
I would say cut it in half, 75.
could,
I would rather have more money in there and us give back some next year than us have a lot of money or not enough and can't do stuff. That's one way I look at it. Because right now it's hard getting concrete too. They're having problems out IMI getting it and the supplies.
we're fixing to get a new plant.
Yeah. But I mean, we have spent about 40,000.
Couldn't we sub some of this out without having to have everything engine? Like, seems like when we've used outside sources before, it was a huge project. Everything had to be engineered and winds up costing a fortune. But I mean,
And half of an engineering cost, yeah.
yeah, that's what I mean. But I mean, there's local guys that could help out with that. If it was more than you could do,
Yeah.
I mean, as long as we didn't have to, you know,
Use grant money or something.
See, that's.
this has to be in-house. Oh, if it's grant money, it has to be, yeah.
Yeah, that's where we got in trouble, not in trouble, but the sidewalk going out to the hospital is that
Right.
of 940 some odd thousand, it was something like 140 or 50,000 or even more that had to be for engineering work.
Yeah.
You know, what in the heck is an engineering work on a sidewalk? He's been building sidewalks for 20 years out there.
I think the other part to this is having a strategy. You know, I've mentioned others when we've talked about other streets and speed limits and getting people off the streets. You know, where are the sidewalks going to go? We do need some new sidewalks from Oriole to the Civic Center's example. How do we get that neighborhood to the Civic Center? How do we get people from neighborhoods to retail stores? And having a design, I know that there's been some work through community development that's been going on. And, you know, so it's going to take some time to connect those, but that's, I think, good value for citizens to connect through the city and get them off major streets where they're being connected to that. So I think, to your point, Steve, getting contract work, getting these things done, getting people off the streets, come back to safety as well. So I like having it in there. And, you know, I think we could use every bit of it and more.
Well, we can leave it in. I don't have any problem leaving it in. It was just that I wasn't gonna leave it in if we can't use it. We need to get realistic about what we can actually do. And if we can contract some of it out, fine. I don't have any problem with that.
Well, and the other factor I would consider is, you know, if we look at sidewalks, you know, that if Main Street comes back up, that was estimated to be about $50,000. That takes up half of that budget. So, I mean, I don't know how long some of the other major priorities are on the sidewalks, but
Well, we still got West Main that we said was a priority.
I would
last year.
almost carry that money over, since we didn't do West Main, and then have 100,000 for the new strategy that Landon and Community Development's working on.
That's how I got to the 100 there.
Well, Frank needs,
So you saying 150?
Oh,
I'm saying carry that 55 over for Main Street. That way you have that $100,000 that can go towards new projects and repairs. There's on Garfield coming down, I saw a father and his daughter on their little bicycle with training wheels go off the sidewalk into the street because the sidewalk was too poor, coming around a blind curve. So
Well, on Caldwell Street, I mean, there's still literally chunks of sidewalks that are.
So I think we have a duty to everything, at the very least this next year, everything that we have, we need to assess. And if it needs repair, we need to repair it. And then in 23, 24, we can focus on more connectivity. But I think we need to get everything we have up to par. And of course, that we're waiting on TDOT for that Main Street.
Yeah, I do think that we need to throw the money at repairing the sidewalks instead of connecting them right now. Because there's a lot of sidewalks that are repaired.
even if it's a 15-foot section or something
Yeah.
like that.
And I just think we need to empower you to come up with other strategies, because you're tapped. I think it's hard to put on additional full-time equivalents, but, you know, utilizing, you know, contract services gets the job done and allows us not to have the liability of a full-time employee.
We can leave the 100,000 in there. It's not a problem to me. I'm just saying that I didn't want to leave it in there if there is absolutely no other way we can spend it.
But you're also saying add the 55 to that from.
Well, my
Main Street.
question was going to be, do we have an estimate on what we need to do to repair and bring up to standard across the city? Do we have a rough estimate of that?
I think Lyndon does.
That 55 is not there anymore. He spent 18 of it.
18 of them.
And so what's left, he needs to replace something.
Yeah.
There was a backhoe or something that you've got,
Tractor.
a tractor.
Tractor.
So he was going to use the balance of that rather than come back and ask for more money on the, this late in the year. Or put it in for next year. So he was going to use it for that. And, the month and a half to go, I don't know how much sidewalk work you can do. But I mean, we can add $50,000 into this.
I think if we want a real number, but not necessarily real, but a good estimate, I think finding out from community development in Landon, what is that cost? How many areas of city sidewalk need to be repaired? And the goal of next year
in the sidewalk fund is to get everything up to par. And that second year and third year can be on strategic connectivity through the city.
Well, give you a few background things here. You can do a sidewalk, not counting the labor and not counting the gravel under it, but the concrete is $12 a lineal foot. So for every $1,000 you put out there, you get 80 feet. Okay, so that means that $100,000, you do the math. And so it's not that expensive if we do it in-house. Now, I don't know what it would be on a contract basis, but we can do a lot of paving or a lot of sidewalks for $100,000. And and that's fine with me. I think that's a good thing to do. But
We do have the spreadsheet that shows different sections, the linear feet, et cetera, et cetera.
That needs repair.
Yeah,
How many linear feet is?
I don't,
use that TDOT formula.
it might take a while for me to get answers. Let's see here. Proposed new, existing, we've got $154,000 to repair 12,900 linear feet.
150.
155.
I mean, every $100,000 gets you over 8,000 lineal feet of sidewalk. 8.3, but if you count the rock and that kind of stuff you got to buy, then let's say 8,000, round it off to 8,000.
Since we have that, that estimation on already calculated, is that an appropriate figure to use?
Well, if you start subbing it out, it gets higher.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
They got to pay for the labor.
the labor's included in what Frank does, but it's not. It's amounts to-
I mean, I don't.
Then
mind.
you want to do as much at one time as possible.
Sure.
So 155 base, and then how much on top of that do you put for, how much do you think we'd have to contract out quite a bit, right? And if we're gonna try to
Yeah,
get this
I
done
mean,
next year.
That would be pretty expensive contracting, yeah. I'd say give me 100,000 and let me see what I do with it this year.
But I think we need to contract some out. I think if we're really gonna try to,
But he
To get
can't do
some-
100,000.
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Some of that 100,000 is going to have to be contracted. So,
well, the repairs that we need and for that projection was 155.
okay. You want to put that in there? I don't have any problem with it.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Okay. So we'll make that 155 instead of 100. Okay, paving. We've got 318,000 in here. We can't take it out of the street fund because we don't have money in there. We've got the rest of it committed. That's where we normally take it out, and we've done that for the last couple of years and kind of siphoned that down. I would have no problem at all bring that up to 500,000. It gets us a lot more bang for our buck because, as I think Stacy said the other day, we're going to get less lineal feet or miles out of it because of the gas prices. This stuff is going to be directly related to fuel prices. Once we go to concrete streets. What do you think, Steve?
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna, depending on what we do and nonprofits, we're getting potentially saving some money there. So that was exactly gonna be my recommendation. was to up both of those two items that we just talked about.
Okay. Now, a lot of that's going to depend on which streets we do, depending on ones that do not need underground improvements. So you know, you've got your list and you may have to skip over some bad ones to,
Yeah.
depending on when you can get the sewer part of it done.
They can get a pretty good bid. We've talked, me and Heath and Ricky. And,
We'll stay out.
yeah,
Okay.
they'll be out in front.
I mean, it'd be nice if we could do the worst streets,
Yeah,
you know, but if they've got sewer or water line problems, that's obviously got to be first.
well, that's some of them, that's the worst streets.
Yeah.
West Hills forward, that's one they're fixing to do water line.
Okay.
So,
Is that one on your list to pave?
yeah, oh, yeah.
We've actually got 4 to replace, that's actually on his list, so we can stay out.
Okay. 500, okay?
Yes.
Okay. All right, stormwater infrastructure. What are we talking about there, Noah?
Oh, let's see. I talked to Lyndon about this. He's aware, and Frank may be able to add to this. He's aware of some projects that we could throw some money at to improve some stormwater existing infrastructure. So
Different from the study.
that's
things
right.
that we've already identified.
Yeah.
This is storm drains that need to be fixed. Well, one of them's at the place that Zach was just talking about, Garfield. There is a storm drain down through there in the curve. It gets stopped up all the time. We have to clean it probably once a year. It's an old line,
The one down with the blue building. That's-
clay pipe, yeah,
Because that water comes all the way down from Mulford Street,
the corner of Caldwell.
front of my building, and washes everything out until you fixed a
Yeah.
little
That's-
diverter.
That's another one that I would like to see get put underground and run all the way down.
You know, that, like I said, I've got personal knowledge of that because
Yeah.
when it rains hard, the water will be from on the far edge of the sidewalk to the middle of the street.
Yeah.
Because I was down there the other day during that rain when the tree fell on a house. And I couldn't get, I tried to jump across it and I ended up that deep in water.
That one drain, it actually comes out of it, doesn't it? It's supposed to do
It
that.
comes
right?
out at the corner of the blue building.
Right.
Water actually comes up and goes down.
It's a small drain too. It's,
Yeah.
I don't know if we can increase the size of the catch basin, but it's not catching very much. I'll put it that way.
It needs to be piped on down.
Cause right now, that's the way it works.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Yeah,
not,
it comes
it's not that
up.
it's overrunning. It
Yeah.
comes out of the ground right there. I mean,
All
that's
the
what it,
water from
right.
MES, the
Yeah.
Black House, all of that goes down that way.
there is no
Pops up
underground
out
pipe
of
from
the
there
ground.
on down. Yeah.
Yeah,
It goes so fast that it passes George Huggins Drive.
Yeah.
And very little of it diverts down. It's going so fast, it just keeps going right down the street.
I'm surprised no one kayaks down.
Believe me, you could do it if you wanted to. All right, I'm sorry that we got off. something,
So
but you got some.
that's pretty much what it's for. Some projects like that around that we can start to chip away at.
He thinks that's going to be adequate.
Of course, he said, give me $1 million,
$1 million.
I can buy $1 million in pipe and let it sit there, but he thinks that that's a good number for this coming budget
Okay.
year.
That's the kind of thing that we don't want to short people on. Because
Yeah.
we've taken to addressing that as a city. What's the status of the stormwater study, I guess?
We are currently waiting on the survey to be done still. The surveyor is backed up. So Nathaniel Green has some initial thoughts and ideas, but he's waiting on the actual survey to be done to connect all the dots.
They're going to get elevations and that kind of thing, so we can see where to drain water.
Can do all the math and all that. Yeah.
Is that that actual amount that you got down there, is that something that he quoted us? It's the reason it's such an odd amount.
The 66, 667.
Yeah.
That is citywide. So yes, those combined, he said it would be 210, I think was his estimate to do it citywide. So,
You got it divided up into
right.
3. Okay.
And that's just because we had 3 spaces there. So that's, I guess we can expect no more than 66,000 this
This
coming
year.
budget year.
All right, that's the end of it unless somebody else has got something they want to add.
I heard that from Justin at Parks and Rec about the slide, and he said if ordered today, it wouldn't be here and be able to be installed before the end of this pool season, but they could have it installed prior to opening next year.
Okay.
So on that, we have about 312,000 in increases. Are you keeping tabs?
The new capital total is 1.473, $1,473,541.
About 300,000 more.
From the 1.16, I believe, is what we started at the beginning.
1.164. And what was the new number?
$1,473,517. $309,500.
That's primarily paving, sidewalks, police station, and then window.
I want to take a bathroom break before we finish this thing up. You got a catheter? You got a catheter?
Yeah, they're listed individually. No, I like Target. But if you want the actual packets, okay.
I just looked on that page 5.
Okay.
Yeah, I got it. Thank you.
Okay. Where did I write?
See, I put that line out here. It's probably get into those surveys. It's like. What do you take?
So a police station's not. A lot of people, but I think it's
So
important.
I do too. I'm just saying. You don't use it for what you want to use it for and don't for what you don't. I mean, that's what you want to do. And that's not good either. So it's not. You know, the other side of me says, yeah, but that's where you want to. You know, we're elected to make those decisions. We can't have a referendum every time we decide whether to do something. I don't know, it's hard, that's hard.
That's why they pass the
That's right.
No, I wish. I don't want.
I mean,
Yeah, maybe a good place to- Just the operations.
Just go.
So you don't need.
I thought.
He changed his mind?
I thought he told me everything.
Well, I think that's a terrible idea myself.
Remember that.
Yes.
I'll make it over here.
Reason being is with all this random. That's the reason it's been.
Police station, City Hall.
Yeah.
This one,
Yes.
Or maybe not the same building.
We just lived
in
right
the
down
same
the street,
spot.
you know. Well, it was, when we lived on South High Street, it was there. Looked at it.
Was it? No, I'm talking about
It's 75.
originally,
Oh.
MES building was it City Hall right there? No, none of us remember. I'm not talking about way back.
I think maybe it was. I think, yeah, I think I remember.
Shirley, what City Hall where MES building is, what's it originally?
Before I started work, I think in
One of the
79,
cities.
when they moved over there. they renovated it.
Yeah.
Moved it. Yeah, City Hall was.
Yeah.
I've seen
The water department.
Police,
the
police were there too.
I remember seeing a picture
Police was in
on
town.
some park. I remember seeing a picture though of a bunch of policemen standing, or maybe it was standing out in front. Yeah, that's what
They used to be inside.
Yeah, we were just saying, I don't think McMinnville Electric System should be out of there. I mean, they want to put their operations plant somewhere else, that's fine, but,
That's part of it.
oh, he's all.
What's that?
You've been around here a long time, right?
Seemingly.
Do you remember when City Hall was in the MES building?
City Hall.
Yeah,
John Biddle was over there.
I certainly.
In fact, I guess, when did the city move out of Indiana?
I think in 79,
79?
that's what I was told.
I wasn't.
Yeah, I was back from law school, so that sounds about right. I didn't get back until 78.
I started in 80.
But now Judge Biddle had an office on the second floor, as I recall. And he conducted city court. He was sort of in charge of everything, wasn't he?
What did you call him?
Judge Biddle.
Judge. Maybe we should we
He
call
was a city.
He was the city judge
Oh,
as
okay.
well as the city recorder.
Well, I guess we can't call you judge, Shirley, sorry.
No, they changed the law.
Judge
Before
Shirley.
I started to work. Which I was later.
He was sort of judge, jury, and executioner, as I recall.
That's what
I
I heard.
remember John.
Shirley, I think these have gone beyond their expiration date.
Oh, really?
Uh-oh.
Oh, they taste pretty bad, or the one that
You're
I
gonna
had.
have to eat a little fast.
Yeah,
Yeah,
my lunch is.
I don't have any problem on this side.
My lunch is really good.
I guess Sally and Stacy hadn't been eating their candy. very
No.
fast. It's got stale.
I formally requested my prioritize Pear Street. Done my part.
It's the non-profit.
It won't go very far, I assure you, but I have officially done my part of that.
Pierce Street is one of those underwater streets, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's sort of a long
Yeah, we're
area.
supposed to go survey that soon. Yeah, I know, I've heard about it. They saw budgets. So I formally have to sit down
And
and
somebody
request
told me
to
that the one time the fire
prioritize and
department,
add that
they
to the
over there where the,
I think they stay pretty busy, don't they?
I don't know.
I mean,
They were in the MES building.
Yeah, but before that.
Seriously.
they over here on
No,
the square.
They were on Square, where the flower shop is.
Yeah, I knew those
They're
right.
there for some days.
They, because my father was a volunteer fireman.
Yeah, sometimes you
They-
can't afford.
The
to
Sonic
walk
Lodge
downtown.
was upstairs
Well,
just
they
because
can't
in that
keep
building,
here having
and
much
downstairs
less
was a fire department.
outside, but
They had
they'll
one
take
truck.
jobs that
And,
no one else
I'm sorry, they
wants.
had two. They had that old American fronts, 1935 truck, or what we still have, and they had one pumper truck. And they got $2 per call
Oh, there,
fire.
you talk about some messes.
And
You don't
we got our
touch anything
water
in Rock Island that isn't
which was about
three,
$5 a
third
month.
degree fire. I mean, there are so many,
And it was all volunteer.
so
It
many
was all volunteer.
issues.
Our city fire. Yeah, really. They had one paid position, that was Harley Roach, and he was the driver.
Well, you tell.
They had a couple of people that manned
I got
phones
Is it sold? Okay.
24/7.
Good.
But Harley was the
And that's
captain,
part
they
thanks
called
to
him,
their
and he got to drive the truck.
prioritizing their survey of that property.
Oh,
So I
You
don't
had a
get
fire, you called the fire.
You call fire
Because
department,
there's a
there was no
couple lot in
911.
Laurel.
Be careful about those. I just had one that was not, it worked great. They were pretty stale. I'm not afraid.
Grown up like a jungle. They had to hack their way through like.
Okay, let's move it on. What's that?
911.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mike.
I've handed out a sheet. And if anybody else wants one, I've got a few of them. I know you want one, but you can't have it. I went back and looked at what the ask was on nonprofits, and then Zach weighed in a couple of times in the meeting we had the other day, and then also by email. You did some recalculating. I went back on that last line or the next to the last line and put in what I thought what I'd like to see. It's strictly my opinions on the thing. The bottom line is for the ask is you look at 437,000 because let's take out the 70,000 that's a pass through. And that 70,000 is not in those last two totals down there, the 209 or the 279 that I had projected in there. The big difference is I agree with Zach on most of these. The first four, the first three, I'm sorry. I agree wholeheartedly. He recommended the chamber going down from 105 to 78.5. I went back and sat down with the TDB. And we only talked about they asked for 50,000 for chamber things and 55 for tourism related things. I went back and talked with the TDB and found out what they were doing that the chamber's not doing on this list. And there are, with the exception of 19,500, all of this stuff is being done by the TDB. With the one exception, the $30,000 that they said for improved marketing, social media, email marketing, SEO, that is, I can't figure that one out, but it's been on there for 3 years. And it was one time was for half of the salary of a person who's not even there, hadn't been there for 4 years or 3 years. So I don't know where that number came from. I don't know if he just copied and pasted.
Yes, he did. And what he was calling tourism isn't tourism. It's basically just print
Handouts.
handouts to go in a rack in the chamber building, and that shouldn't be on us.
No, we're double dipping here. But I did find that of the rest of it, which added up to 19, and there's a couple of them that I still have some issues with, like printing the tourist magazines. They make money on that. He's got it down here that they spent $1,500, but they make somewhere between $5,000 and $7,000 every time they do it. Okay, I'll let it go. But instead of 55,000, it looks like it's more 19.5. So that's where the 69,500 came, is the 50 he asked for plus the 19.5. So it's a little bit less than what Zach put down here. The Meals on Wheels.
Let's go back.
Sure.
We're looking at this right This column right here is what you recommended is.
Yes, the one that I didn't put my name up on top of.
Okay, I had a question on the library. Are
Hmm.
you going with 78,000 or are you going with 75,000?
I was,
Well, one of them is Zach's recommendation and one of them is Everett's.
yeah,
The 78, I believe, is the maintenance.
68.
Is it 68?
68 is the maintenance of Everett, and they asked for 10,000
Oh, okay.
above that.
And my rationale for mine was they had 14 last year above the maintenance of Everett.
Right,
And so essentially they gave themselves greater than a 25% cut from last year
on the extra.
on the extra. So that's why I put down their ask, because they actually did the cut. No one else.
Yeah, I don't
actually made a cut.
have any problem with adding that 78 back. It's only $2,500 more than what I put down there. So I
Steve?
I think we should stay with the 78 on that one.
okay, I have no problem at all with that. That is 2,500.
The 69,500.
Yeah, which chamber one are we going with?
Well, when I came up and took out the stuff that the TDB is already doing, that left the 50,000 they wanted for chamber stuff, 19,500 after I took out the TDB stuff. And then also as a separate line item, the $5,500 dues. And I did not go back and check because there are certain things in that $5,500 that are guaranteed to us that we get, but I don't know what those are. I didn't bother to go back and check. But the big thing is I took, 40,000 bucks out of the TDB budget because they're being done by the TDB.
Yeah, but if their ask is 105, so of that amount, aside from the dues, the 105, and then Zach has recommended 78.5, and you've recommended 69.5.
After doing this research, yes.
Somebody, yeah, Shirley was just asking.
So are we going with 69,500?
I think that's an appropriate measure. I mean, you've looked at it objectively through their line items, and just to make a note, they've got 148,000 in cash as of last year.
Yeah. So, I don't have any problem with that. Is that okay with you, Steve?
Okay.
Okay. All right. We talked about these other things that are all, for the most part, great items, and we certainly wouldn't want to see them go away, but we had a lot of concerns about the money in the bank, not even assets, but money in the bank. I know they have assets of, let's say, with the Meals on Wheels of stoves and carts and things like that, but just the money in the bank for Meals on Wheels was almost $250,000. And that kind of bothered us as the finance committee, and we recommended before that that be axed this year. And I don't know if that's still the opinion of both of you.
Yes.
Okay. Same is true of the food bank. They have $112,000 in cash. And they're only asking for $2,000. I'm not really sure how that goes, but we had decided to also not participate there this year.
To add one more comment.
Sure.
To yours. I mean, these are all great organizations and amazing volunteers. I wanted to thank everybody that was up here. I think the other factor is this does not necessarily create a prerequisite for the next year.
No.
If there is a need, funds get low, then certainly they can appeal again. But this year, I think we just made $312,000 increases to our capital budget. And we need to find a way to balance that out.
And we're taking care of our city employees.
City employees, paving and streets.
The other good thing is that we do have a pretty good fund balance right now. That, we're at 6 million, it looks like 6.1, which is almost double what we planned on. But of course, 2 million of that was the ARP money. Food bank we did. Main Street, They asked for 45. You said something about 30. I'd like to give them 40. That's their salary that they're paying their director. They do have $40,000 or $45,000 in the bank, but that's mainly because they didn't pay a director for about a half a year. And that's going to go away. So I said, let's do 40. Now, again, we can, what do you think, Steve?
I'm not, I don't feel that strongly about it either way. I mean, split the difference. That's what I would say.
I think one of the things that I saw on Main Street that I'd like to see, between now and next year is certainly their membership. There wasn't much membership involvement there. And that would be a great way to show that they're being proactive.
We can let them know that kind of thing. BRAC was another one that we decided not to fund. They have 172,000 in the bank. I hate not giving to some of these people, but when I look at their bank statements, we decided that's just, they should be using this
This is
money.
an amazing program. I mean, the amount of resources, and like Todd said, there are more jobs than there are applicants. And I hope the community will continue to support it, outside of they can grow and sponsor more students.
And if they can convince us that there's a reason for this, I'd be more than happy to revisit this even this year. Budget amendment if we had to. But when we questioned people in here, we just didn't get good answers about why they had money back. I mean, the lady from Meals on Wheels told us, well, we just want that in there.
Keep a year's budget
Yeah,
in reserve, and that's a lot.
yeah. I wish I had that.
Yeah.
And it, like you just said, Everett, if they get down to a situation where there's a food crisis and they've fed 4 times the amount of people and they need money, we can revisit that in the middle of the year.
Senior centers where I really disagree with you. The senior center is dealing with more people than everybody else on this thing put together. They're helping almost 1,000 people, 900 and some odd people that are getting services from there. And
It's more every
yeah, and it is. Lana has done a booming job. She really has. And I go to their meetings, and I think that, she's gone after things that I didn't even know existed. And I would like to bring that back up to what they asked for, which was the 30.
I think the only reason why I looked at a 25% cut is because across the board, there was nobody that we were fully funding besides the rescue squad. But I don't see any, I don't have any major argument besides that.
Steve?
No, I'm okay.
All right. Caring Hearts United was another one. I don't think they had a whole lot of money in the bank, but they were asking for 21,000, which is basically their whole budget for the year. It seemed like certainly it was 6 months worth of their giving packages or whatever. And the lady that was up here, when I told her they had asked for 21.5, she was stunned. She didn't have any idea that they had asked for that. And I guess one hand's not talking to the other. So we were just concerned that was.
There's also costs for utilities and rental, which I thought was strange for an organization like that. Maybe it was for storage for things, but I thought that was a little bit excessive. And then community donations was very low to the cost. So, certainly with them, I'd like to see, increased community support, which would show the importance of it in our community.
Okay. Young Men United, you had said that about operational assistance. I'm not really sure what you were talking about that.
So when we look at Young Men United, I think there's items on here that, junior auxiliary rotary and things, it's $17,000. When we're trying to, like the mayor says, fund our own employees, and there's opportunities for the community to support large outdoor tent for events, supplies for gym. Those are things that I think that community organizations can help with. But, certainly they don't have a lot of money on hand. And so being able to pay for their utilities and operational costs of $3,000 was my recommendation at the minimum for them.
I just thought that they do a very good job. I was willing to knock them down 70 or 25%. But I didn't want to axe them completely. That's what's your opinion of that, Steve?
I'm gonna meet in the middle type of guy. I mean, I understand what both you guys are saying.
I'm okay with the 25% reduction as you propose. I think that's
The
fair.
12,750.
12,750. I'm okay with that.
Is that okay with you, Steve?
Yes.
Okay.
I think it shows that, that still reflects that we're trying to maintain a balanced budget and helping support them at the same time.
If I may, they do a lot of things for young children that need help. I think that's good.
Yeah, the same thing is true with the Black History Museum too. I was talking with Wayne yesterday about what they're doing with kids. We'll get down to that in a minute.
And to that point, we talk about cash on hand. I mean, Young Men United has almost $33,000 in donations and gifts. And their total cash is not very high. So they utilize their funds, their
But they
aggressive
go after
reviews,
volunteers.
but it shows that they've got a lot of community support. So
They do. Kids of the community, again, another great group that does some great things, but they've got, again, almost $250,000 in the bank. When I went back and looked at them, did a little bit more deep dive, I was really kind of stunned that they had that kind of money. Anyway, we crossed them out. Books from birth, we just crossed out. I'm not sure if we have a very good reason, but it just didn't.
this is an educational program that is a very important program. Read 20 minutes is a big campaign, and I think goes a long way. And somebody once said, sometimes the first time they ever had a male read to them was their rights. Reading and literacy is very important in terms of confidence in academics and success. And so I do think it's a very important program. I think it needs to fall on more education-based entities.
You want to do nothing or give them something?
I agree. I maintain the stance, but I think that's the reason it needs to go to a more education-based entity.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay. All right, TDB, we'll forget about that one because that's a pass through. It's on the revenue side. It's on the expense side. Black History Museum, I put down about 40% of what they asked for. They asked for 17. I put down 10,000 on that. I went and talked to Wayne yesterday, and he is trying to open up the upstairs. They have the total upstairs, with the exception of the front offices, back where the old patient rooms used to be, and they're expanding up to there. So they would like to have some money to do that with. That's the big thing. They also get pretty good community support. So I'd like to give them something there.
What was your operating expenses? What we're talking about on that one?
Well, when I looked at it and I thought, how does this fit into us? I thought it had a big tourism component. And I looked at it from that perspective. And so when I looked at the request from here, advertising was 4,000. And so that's why I picked 4,000 as the recommended amount. I agree with Everett on what he said and reasons for increasing. And I think there's probably some middle ground there that we we can look at.
Jen, okay with
Yep.
you? Home asked for 19,000 and you had said about 11,000 and I don't have any problem with that. I don't know about you, Steve.
I'm fine with that.
Okay.
You know, that was,
That was for their shelter or something, right? Or-
yeah, well, I think mine was, I put 5, and the reason was when we look at their list, refrigerators, microwaves, split units, you know, this is all the project that's out of, a lot of it's for Prosperity Point. But one of the things that home provides for us is help with the homeless, and the tough part is gonna be the winter. And they're requesting $5,000 for shelter, and they want to talk about proposing a warming shelter. But that's what they're projecting for the winter time between 2022 and 2023. So my recommendation was 5, not 11. I think they do a lot of great good, but they also have a lot of momentum with community support. They got 8 houses out there. And I think we should probably leverage a little bit more on that community support for these refrigerators, microwaves, cameras, phones and service. So my recommendation would be 5.
Steve?
And what's your thoughts on 11, Everett?
The out-of-pocket cost that Zach said, and that was it 5?
It was 5,
Okay. And what was the warming shelter that we're talking about?
That's a project they'd like to talk to us about, and that's about, you know, what can we do with, you know, they house folks in hotel rooms, which has a nightly cost.
Right.
So if we could, you know, work with them to come up with a facility that would be serving the homeless. You know, so instead of housing them in a hotel, if they would be housed in a warming shelter, temporary shelter. So that costs, I mean, it's a large upfront cost, but it goes down dramatically. So, you know, again, that covers the winter, but maybe we can begin some other type of engagement with them to talk about more investment in a different way. And I guess that would probably go through buildings and grounds to move forward with them on that.
Like I said, they don't have anything. Well, they got 5,000 down here for the winter cost, but they really don't have anything down for that shelter. And like I said, they were looking for some help possibly with us. But the rest of it I was looking at was parts of the other things at the top, the refrigerators, the cameras, the laptops, that type of thing. It was just giving them some money on that.
I
That's the
think
difference
in
between
terms
the
of,
two.
you know, if you want to look at other things that might be helpful, you know, is the security cameras. I mean, in terms of, you know, giving, you know, the police more resources. If there's issues out there, they have that may help our department in there. So, you know, if we targeted those 2 items, you know, security cameras and helping with the winter costs, that would increase our giving there a little bit, have some specific
So it's
feedback
8,000.
to help us as a
Yeah.
city.
Okay. So 8,000, okay, then.
Yes.
Okay. Habitat, again,
Straight out.
we decided not to because of the money in the bank. Now, I don't know. I'm concerned about them having $100,000 in the bank. It's sort of like senior center had $70,000 in the bank, but they could have 20 tomorrow because they only get their biggest supplier of money is UCDD. And they bill them once a quarter and it may take them another month to get their money. So they have up here and then all of a sudden they're down here because they don't have the money. I don't know if that's the case with Habitat. I know that they have to build a house. I don't think it, I think they told me that the last one they built cost them 100,000 to build. So that's still almost 2 houses worth that are set at the 170,000 level. So we felt like that we would just back out of that one for at least a year. Families in crisis. I think that's another one. I put down 8,000 here, but I'm not really sure that we shouldn't give them the full 10. If there's somebody that's doing something for the community, obviously it's a smaller segment of the community than what the senior center is doing. But they're dealing with the worst situations of the worst. And I would like to go back up to the 10,000, but I put out 8 here. It's up to you guys what you want, what you feel like. It just seems to me that they're one of the ones that really need the money.
When you look at there's shelter essentials, 3,000, I think that's an important part. 24-hour crisis line and intervention, I think that's super important for us. They respond to 125 officer calls a year in helping our department. Then the next line item is $2,000 for homeless prevention. I think that's a little bit redundant to me when we have home and other social services. That may be that, I don't know, that may be very specialized in terms of what they're doing. So I think that's probably questionable there in terms of their population. Community education and shelter playground. So I don't know how, when I was looking at operational costs, that's how I got to that number. But again, with the playground, I think that's another opportunity for the community to get involved in. They may not want any community members on that property. That might be part of their issue. But in terms of doing a build, but I would see playgrounds as an opportunity for community. But it's a very needed program. So I'm okay with your recommendation there.
The 8,000.
What was yours number?
At first, I looked at 6,000 for operational costs with the shelter needs and the 24-hour hotline. But as I got to thinking about the homeless prevention, they're probably talking about a specialized population that's probably not going to be in the population that home is dealing with.
Yeah, that sounds more like a home project than a.
Yeah, I think they're probably, they know who is, they're not going to be on the street, but what they're bed hopping, and that's probably not the best situation for their population. They probably need a more stable environment, safety. So I think, could easily apply $8,000 for those first 3 items: shelter essentials, 24-hour crisis line, and homelessness prevention.
Okay. Special games. Now, there's where we kind of disagreed about, but they asked for $10,000. They are providing a service for mentally impaired kids and adults. And it's not just the horsing around thing. They've got other programs that they're working. And as Holly said when she was up here, that she believes in it so much, she's quit her job and is going to do this full time. And I'm proud of her that she can do that. But I would like to give them something. I split the difference between 0 and 10,000, said 5,000. Because I really believe that they're going after people that we couldn't help. Well.
I've been involved with this organization for a number of years. I have a number of patients that I've cared for over the years that are involved in this, and I think that the other aspect would be there's is there a match challenge? Is this an opportunity that we say, you got $45,000 in donations this year, and if you raise that, we match up to $10,000 by increasing your donations over this next year. That's an option. I think it's a little bit more complicated dealing with a budget and finance, but I don't disagree with that. They're a worthy program and they are attending to that population, and I don't know of any other organization that is.
So I would support your recommendation.
You would support yours? Yeah, 5,000, okay. Not a problem. No, it almost, I don't know. It almost gets a little inconsistent at that point because of some that we cut out, some that we haven't. But, I mean.
They don't have any money.
True, that's true. I look, what were their,
They raised last year $45,000 in donations and gifts from citizens. I would imagine part of that is about $8,000 from the Rotary Club for finishing up the bathroom up there. They have $5,000 total cash at the end of the fiscal year. I mean, they use what they get.
they're spending their all
They're
their
spending,
money.
they're spending the money, they're using it, putting it into good work.
They're not hoarding money, that's for sure. Okay. All right, 5,000. Birchma Medical Clinic. Here's another one. They wanted 5. They couldn't define how many McMinnville residents they serve. They could say Warren County residents. There was 15%, I think, in the medical part, and 30% in the dental part. They also have $105,000 in the bank. So we had agreed not to fund them. Is that still? Okay. Then the last 2 are mandatory, $28.95 for UCHRA, and the same thing, plus 48 cents for UCDD. What does that come out to?
The total without the 70,000 for the TDV is set $273,834.
I mean, and I looked at some stats today, Alcoa, which has a $40 million budget, gives $13,000 in donations.
Yeah, I appreciate
So
that information.
I
too.
really
Thanks
feel
for-
like,
That's very eye opening.
you know, the pattern that I did see though, is that more rural municipalities give a lot more. And I think some of that may be because they have more items in-house in Alcoa. So I do think that in order to serve our citizens, we do need to have teammates. And we want to make sure all of these teammates are able to survive every year. So I'm gonna reiterate again that, you know, if some of these entities that have $100,000, $200,000 in the bank come back next year and have utilized their money, then we might need to look at supporting them.
And I'll just say too, that I've always kind of felt this way, but I appreciate you really pushing it and bringing it up this time, is that, you know, we're basically all these years, we're telling our taxpayers what charitable organizations they have to contribute to. And it's always kind of bothered me, you know, but we've just always done it. And I think, I mean, I don't really think that's the way it should be necessarily.
I think we got into a rut here.
We did, and it's hard, you know, I mean, we're cutting money out to a lot of, I mean, they're all great. I mean, all of them are, but it's just, I think it's the right thing to do what we're doing. And I appreciate you helping us get there.
I think the big thing too is that we need to convey to these people why we did what we did, our thought process here. And like you say, invite them back next year if their situation changes.
I think it comes down to objectivity. I think that's something that I tried to do through all these, and I think, you know, through our reasoning through this. But I don't know if from moving forward here, do we create a little bit of a policy, and that's a conversation for finance committee another time. That way, future finance committee members have a little bit more of consistent look at this. You know, how much cash in the bank, you know, what's the service provided to the city? How does it supplement city services? Criteria that we can do it.
I mean, in that survey, out of how many, I mean, there might have been one other that was even in the ballpark of what we give. I mean, that's it. I mean, no one does this.
There was something no one had. There was some time. Like you said,
Paris
it
was
was,
an example.
Paris
That's
was a,
$12 million budget and they were 215 or.
there was a couple that were pretty high, but again, they were rural areas where they don't have that big infrastructure that big cities have and bigger programs. You know, I'm sure Nashville has a homeless program of some kind. But I think we're getting a handle on what we're doing here. Right now, it's easy for us to give whatever we want to give because we've got this extra money, but that's not going to be there forever. And we might as well start this process now.
Paris has almost a $13 million budget. They gave 237. Pulaski, $12 million budget. They gave out over $500,000.
Yeah, that's,
And then you have Alcoa that has a $26.5 million budget. They give out $13,000.
Wow.
yeah.
Crossville, $20 million budget, $300,000. So I think the key thing is that the city of McMinnville focuses on what the citizens of city of McMinnville needs. But that's, I think, how we justify things.
Anything else? Finance committee, is anybody else? Want to talk about?
Do we need a overall approval of this? Do we need a motion to approve?
We are gonna have to approve this to pass on to the. floor.
Well, yes.
But other than that, I don't have anything to add.
I think we approved them individually. I think that does it unless you want to just vote on the total package. But if that's the case, we need to vote on the total package of the capital.
And I think part of it is, you know, one of the things we wanted to do this year was to make sure that this fit with the overall budget, not approve these and then have to cut costs in the budget somewhere else.
Sure.
And I think with going through the budget already, and these costs were relatively in there, the reduced amount is in these packets that we reviewed today. And I think we're still gonna come out with 4 months of cash.
And this is,
at the end of the year. So
this is still $130,000 less than what we gave last year. We gave over 400,000 last year. And I think we're going in the right directions. And again, I want to convey to these people why, rather than just us looking like a bunch of heartless guys up here doing this. I mean, seriously, how could you not give money to Meals on Wheels? You've got a huge, big stash of money, you know. I know that they got to keep money in reserve, but there's a limit. to
they
it.
also need roads with no potholes to get to their clients.
All right. Is there anything else? I think that we've,
I'll make a motion to approve the nonprofit total number that we just came up with of 273,834. Is that right?
Yep.
Plus the
834.
70,000 for TDB, if that should be included, which brings it to a total of 343,834.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. All right. If we're going to do that, let's make a motion on the capital projects, but.
We did have a question about one of them, the electric crop, should we, it's in there as is.
Let's just leave it in there. It's not, but what, $8,000 or something like that. Let's leave it in there. We can always take it out if we have to, but let's do something to recommend to the board. So moved. Second. Favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody else got anything?
Those are recommendations to the committees, and then the committees will meet and take their and propose it to the full board. So we've changed where the finance committee comes in. We're giving recommendations to them rather than them approving a budget and us saying we don't like it. We're giving them recommendations and allowing them to pass their, and then they'll go to the full board.
So whole nother argument.
If there's nothing else, we're adjourned.
Set the committee meetings for next Tuesday night while most everyone's
Still
here.
working on
If y'all won't be here, you know, still-
You
want my copy?
Yesterday, he made me feel the floor.
Let me
Yeah,
give you
information
mine.
on
It's like glass. Feel it.
Um,
And you can
Right.
get my copy.
And then
We,
they
we
also.
decided, and I'll give you the right number, okay?
I mean, he was the only. So you write it out.
He is real good.
There's a reason to come.
Exactly.
You're good with that.
Yeah,
as the chair.
It's worth it.
It is.
I guess they'll be here. Rachel, are
I
they
thought
sure?
they would be here today. I was hoping to find out